You're watching Honoring the Armor podcast, hosted by Coach Nikki M.
Honoring the Armor, friends and family, we are back. It is 2025. There's a lot going on. A lot has happened. We are still going to persevere and press forward. Listen, I am so happy that it is Women's Health Month because we are here to talk about something that really doesn't get talked about a lot. Not in the media, not in the medical community. I think it's certainly talked about in offices with patients behind closed doors, but you don't see women getting together to have these conversations in person. I know there's a lot of conversation now happening about menopause, but that's not what we're here to talk about because even that conversation needs to catch up. We are here today to talk about hysterectomies. I am here with my two lovely, lovely guests, Tiffany and Joy, to talk about our hysterectomy journeys, to talk about how hysterectomies are not a bad, dirty, ugly word for everybody. I know that there are certainly some sensitivities around hysterectomies. Everybody's journey is different because everybody's body is different, everybody's circumstances are different, and still there are conversations to be had around hysterectomies that are not sad, they're not anxiety-inducing, conversations where things turned out very positively, very happily, and where the journey was filled with support and information and knowledge to help you get to where you needed to go. One of the things I want to start off by talking about, I want to just dispel this myth that I don't know about you all, but I know I grew up hearing about hysterectomies maybe not till like my late 20s, I feel like. And I really didn't know what it was. I knew it had something to do with your lady innards. That's all I knew. I didn't know exactly what it meant, what was happening. But I did hear just like, oh, was it a partial or a full? That's like a piece of the story, I guess I'll say, a piece of the option. There really is like no partial versus full hysterectomy. So I want to start by giving you just like a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of real information so that we can have this conversation, not just in a way that's, very respectful, but also like very honest. So couple things to understand. The type of hysterectomies are really about the extent of what is removed on the inside, right? So you can have a total hysterectomy, so that is the uterus and the cervix are removed, gone. You can have a supracervical or partial hysterectomy. So what happens in that case is only the uterus is removed and your cervix is left intact. You can also have a radical hysterectomy. So the uterus, the cervix, and the surrounding tissue, including the ovaries and the fallopian tubes, are all removed. Now, that is most often done when treating gynecologic cancer. Again, it's just information. I'm not talking about your specific surgery. I'm not even talking about the three of us up here because everybody had a different circumstance and a different situation. But I do want to lay the groundwork so we can move beyond not having, I guess I'll say, deep dialogue and not having truth about hysterectomies and just looking at them as partial or full. It's not that simple. It's not that black and white. So I want to start off, now that we have that, we got some information and knowledge is power. I want to start off by maybe asking the ladies and whoever wants to answer this, when was your first exposure to or knowledge of that like a hysterectomy even existed? And you can probably cheat, Tiffany, because you have, medical experience in the medical field. So your knowledge of ever hearing about a hysterectomy may have come much earlier than ours.
I guess I probably was 15 or 16 because one of my aunts had one, and so you hear people talking about it. But, they don't really talk about it around the young ladies or whatever. Mm-hmm. But you kind of hear oh, they did this, they did that. Like you said, the partial or the full is the word that goes around, and that was it. I remember being about 15 or 16.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about you, Joy?
I feel like I was probably like late teens.
Okay.
And those are always the descriptors, like full, partial. Um, I just knew it involved removing your uterus.
Mm-hmm.
Not the nuances, how you just kind of laid them out. And I didn't think about it because, as far as I was concerned, it didn't apply.
Mm-hmm.
But
So you both heard about it like much earlier than I did. I was definitely like in my 20s, probably. I feel like maybe like my mid 20s, I think, when I first heard about it, and it was exactly like in passing. An older, relative, obviously female relative, had one, and it was exactly that, like very brief, like partial or full. Like that's all I got from it. Didn't really know the why. Didn't really know like, well, what happened? You know what I mean? Didn't know about like how did she recover? Like didn't have really any information. But I think that goes back to, for me, and probably for many of us, also nobody sat me down and talked to me about sex. You know what I mean? Like nobody, if you're not sitting me down and like, this is skinny on the birds and the bees, then you're probably not going to be like, let's talk about your reproductive organs. You know what I mean? Let's talk about, if, later in life you might experience some things. So I think it kind of goes full circle with other things that don't get talked about. Does that make sense?
Right. I think the bulk of the education for me came from school, the health class, or when the teacher takes the boys out and they go with the gym teacher and the girls stay with the female teacher, and they kind of give you the breakdown. Sorry. The breakdown of what's supposed to happen, like in technical terms, or the visit to the health museum, where they show you all the horrible pictures of all the things that can go wrong, to try to scare you straight, like don't do this, don't do that, don't do, So I remember getting that part of the education, but not the other part of it.
So let's talk a little bit about, because as I said, like everybody has their own story, their own journey, and I want to make sure that we're really good stewards of those stories. Talk to me, and I'll ask you, Joy, about when you first started thinking about, hey, I might have a situation that I want to go and talk to my GYN about, and going from that to this might be a situation where I might consider hysterectomy.
okay, I will say I have suffered with fibroids for years. And, when they're smaller, they're not problematic. And, a doctor will identify that you have them, but not really do too much about it because they're small. But as time went on, they grew and they became problematic. Pain, I would say abdominal pain, that kind of would come and go, like that kind of like sharp aching pain would come and go. But that's like, okay, that's tolerable. I have a high pain tolerance. But then I feel like it became more frequent. Okay, this is a problem. So I go back to OBGYN, and I didn't have to, but I opted to. At that point, there were certain options. And what she presented to me was like this ablation. And I'm like, oh, okay, and she did let me know that there was a probability or likelihood, I should say, that they could come back. But I'm at this point, you're just kind of looking for some relief. I'm not thinking I'm going to be in that percentage of, recurrence. So went forth, had the procedure, maybe a couple months. Oh, okay. But then I noticed the same symptoms.
After months?
Some months, yes. And then now I'm having like this nonstop trickle of like bleeding. It's not like heavy. Like some people I know that have had hysterectomy, they was like my sister had one. She said it's like she goes through pads. Mine was never heavy like that.
Not the hysterectomy.
The fibroids.
Yeah.
Which is caused
okay.
that.
Okay.
Mine was never heavy, but it was constant. like this constant irritating, wouldn't go away.
Like you feel like you were spotted year round.
It was like spot, yes.
Year round. Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
So, go back to a doctor and it's like, oh, well, yeah, they've come back, but they're not as big, and I'm like, yeah, but ever since I had this ablation, now I'm having this, I used to call it leaking.
Okay. I'm leaking. Okay.
Sorry. But it was annoying more than anything. And then it affects your, your sex life. So, fast forward, go back to a doctor, because now it's kind of a little heavier, still not like a flow, like a monthly menstrual flow, but heavier than the leak, not going away. And this time she was like, it was something in, I want to say, the test, when they did the test, the fibroids had grown, they were bigger, came back, there were more. And I don't remember what the technical term, it was something else, and it was at that point they mentioned a hysterectomy as a possibility, and I'm like, take it out.
Oh my God.
Today. Right now.
Like, can we go to pre-op right now?
Right now, for real, yes. So that was kind of my experience. This was just not even 2 years ago, so I was kind of already menopausal, having some of the symptoms. So for me, I'm like, okay, just come on with it. I want some relief. I want to stop leaking, and I want to stop having these like cramping pains. So I never had any, anxiety or trepidation about it. I didn't. I was like, come on. Can I schedule right now?
You're like, is there a drive-through that I can pull up to and get this done? Please?
Yes. So I did my research. I had an awesome GYN. She was very informative. I had my notepad, had all these questions. But yeah, my experience was quite, uneventful. It was pleasant, and I had relief.
I want to go back to that ablation. I am not a doctor. Okay. But I will tell you, Joy and probably about 5 other women that I know are in a group of women where the ablation was unsuccessful. And interestingly enough, one of those women told me that her doctor told her that it doesn't necessarily have a high success rate. And so, yes, your fibroids can come back as long as they have a place to come back to, whether you have an ablation or not, they can come back. But specifically with the ablation, that you could end up like almost being in a space where it's like you never had it done. Have you heard that, Tiff? So I think you and like 5 other women have been very disappointed by having that ablation.
That's a very nice choice of words.
Because I said disappointed.
I would have said something.
Disappointed. So you never had any kind of like hesitation?
No.
No.
I'm sorry. No, ma'am.
That's all right. That's all right. No, that's good. That's good. Mm-hmm. How long did it take? Well, I'll ask Tiffany first.
Okay.
Talk to us a little bit about you, like having whatever moment or symptoms or experiences, like, I might need to go and have something checked out.
Let's see. I normally would get my annual exams like every August. So everything was fine, no issues. 6 months later, I had like a cycle for 30 days. I'm like, oh, I'm calling somebody. This is not normal. I don't know what this is. But this is not me, whatever it is. So called, the doctor sent me for an ultrasound. And the doctor's like, oh, well, you have fibroids. I'm like, well, where did those come from? Like, nobody told me about those 6 months ago. Like, they just appeared over 6 months? Like, what are you talking about? So they said, well, come in. We'll see what we can do. So from my understanding, how it was explained to me, when you have a cycle, it feeds the fibroids. So that's how they come back, and that's how they grow larger. So even if you do an ablation or a myomectomy where you try to remove they can still come back because you still have the cycle that's feeding. So so they said, well, we're going to go with a IUD. Let's go with IUD. I'm thinking, do we have to go with that? Like, what other options do we have? So at the time, I had a male GYN and another male consulting on it. And they're like, oh, no, you're still young. You don't have children. What if you meet somebody? And I'm thinking, I hadn't thought that far in advance. At this point, I'm a widow. I'm thinking, I don't know.
You're like, what if?
I know. He was like, what if? I was like, oh, what if? I don't know. But at that point, just that one phrase just kind of put a little something like in the back of my head, like, what if? And so he was like, well, let's do the IUD because then you can take it out and things will change. And so listening to him, I got this IUD. It took the cycles away, stopped that 30-day cycle, but it didn't take the pain away. And they continue to grow.
Can I ask what your fibroid pain was like? Mine was similar to what Joy described. What was yours like?
It was awful. Like double over in pain.
Oh.
Like the pains would come so sharp sometimes. It wasn't like, it was always like a sharp pain, but I would get some that were so sharp I would just double over.
Was it like a build? Like you know how headaches
Oh my God.
start as like low grade and then they build? Would it be like that, or would it be like just out of nowhere?
It would be like going from a sinus headache to a migraine in like 5 minutes.
Wow.
Oof.
Okay. Oof.
Like
That made my head hurt.
Girl.
It was the description.
Right.
Oh God.
So
Okay.
fast forward a year or two, I'm dealing with it the best I can, taking Tylenol like crazy. I changed jobs, so change insurance. Somebody recommends another GYN. I get to her, she's like, yeah, you need hysterectomy like right now. I was like, right now? But I thought the IUD was helping. She was like, yeah, it's not helping. So I said, well, I'm in a bind right now. I cannot get it. So I knew that I needed it and it was recommended. But at the time, I was my grandmother's primary caregiver.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I cannot go 6 weeks or so without seeing her. Like, it's not going to work. And so she said, okay, I'll do what I can to get you two ready. I said, okay, 3 years. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep hitting this microphone. I'm a little handsy, 3 years later, my grandmother passes away. And I'm thinking, well, I made it 3 years. Maybe I could, keep going a little longer. So that was August. April, I went to Arizona just to think about relocation. I was pulling over every 30 minutes going to the bathroom and barely making it.
Oh, wow.
Your bladder was so...
My bladder was like, I was like, what is going on? Oh, my God. So as soon as I get home, I call my provider. I'm like, when are you free? We got to schedule this. I can't take it anymore. Like, this is too much. So another provider I worked with at the time said, well, there's this other treatment. Let's try this. So my doctor at the time said, okay, we can go meet with, it was a interventional radiologist. So there's a procedure where they can go up through your groin and guide a wire through and a needle and inject dye into your uterus to shrink the fibroids. But it's a small window. Like, they have to be a certain size or else. So I go, I get this,
So you had all of them imaged and measured.
Right.
Okay.
So he did the image and measuring. 3 days later, this doctor called me, and I swear this man sounded like he was in tears.
Oh, my God.
I'm like, what? What's wrong? Like, what? He was like, why did you wait so long? I'm like, what do you mean, why did I wait so long? The doctor said, wait.
And your fibroids had just come...
Like within...
later in life. It wasn't like, well, these are the fibroids that's been with me. We've been going 20 years strong. No. It wasn't like that.
No.
Okay.
No. So I guess in a matter of 3 or 4 years, so he was like, I just wish you would have came sooner. I could have helped you. I was like, okay, all right, okay, thank you. I appreciate it. So not only did he sound in distress to me, he sounded the same way when he talked to my provider on the phone. And she was like, I'm just going to show you the images. I was like, why did he sound like that? So in the image, it looked like a bowling ball was sitting on my bladder. And you know how, like, you see those really tiny bikini bottoms? Like, that's what my bladder looked like.
Oh, my God.
It was that pressed down on the image. I said, just schedule me whenever you can. They were like, you want next month? I'm like, well, wait a minute, I got to get some help first. Let me line up my helpers and things of that nature. So everybody said, if you do the end of August, we can help you. Kids are back in school. My parents will be home from vacation, things like that. I called back. I said, end of August, I can go. And I went, and I was not afraid. I was ready. I was prepared. You know, I mean, and you do. I don't know if you ladies went through this, but I had a few friends who like called, aren't you scared? Listen, I'm not scared.
I was not.
I am not scared. I said faith and fear cannot live in the same body.
I didn't have those people because you told me don't talk to them.
Don't talk to people.
Let me be clear. Tiffany called me and told me if people are calling you, asking you if you're scared and pouring their fears on you, hang up and don't talk to them.
Because that will feed into you. You will be afraid. Like, and I was like, no, I cannot be afraid. I can't live the rest of my life like this. That is what I do know. And I do know if you know, God put me on a path with a doctor who is listening to me and not trying to talk me into something else, and these doctors are trying to help me, then obviously this is what God wants.
Yeah.
You know, so not only do you get the people calling you, you know, fearful, you get family members, oh, I wanted you to have a baby. Did you look at my birth certificate? Do you see how old I am?
Who are those
people? It is not time. That ship has sailed. It is time to get some relief in my life.
I'm so glad nobody called and said that, because I don't want to have to go no contact with people calling me saying, foolish stuff.
And I understand that people will push their fears on you.
And their wants, and they should want stuff about their lives.
And their desires. And I just made peace with, you know what? Obviously, God meant for me to love on every other child around me, and I'm okay with it. It's fine by me. Sign me up. Let's go.
Girl. I'm like, you need a ride?
Let's go.
Honey,
I drove myself to the hospital. Listen, my ride wasn't there on time. I got in that car and drove to the hospital myself and said, meet me there. I'm done. I'm done. We can get the car in 2 days. I don't care. I am going to make this appointment, and I'm going to be on time. And I was there by myself, sitting in a little area. Like, till everybody else got there. Honey, I was more than ready. Like, I'm done. I can't live like this.
Amen. That's a lot. What was I going to tell you? So I had fibroids for a really long time, but they were very polite and demure. So they weren't big. They were like so nice to me for a long time. They only hurt about once or twice a year. That's it. But I want you to imagine it's like a sunny day. It's 76 degrees and like a light breeze, but warm. And you are skipping through a field, a beautiful field of like tulips. And then you fall down a well. That was my fibroids. So that was my fibroids. So they were very nice and polite and demure until the once or twice a year when they decided they would hurt. There was no buildup where you could be like, oh, I'm going to go get some ibuprofen. They're going to hurt. It would be just like minding my business, skipping through that field, and literally like your knees buckle. That is where it would be like everything's going fine, and then you're like da-di-da, and you fall down a well. Like that was how when they decided that they were going to be like, hey y'all, let's do this. That is how it would go. And I would be like what felt like to me like just immobilized, like instantly. And still I was fine with that, because I didn't have heavy cycles. My cycles were always like super nice, very polite to me. When I got, I think, 40, around 40, they started to increase and become normal, because I had very like light and dainty cycles. Like they'd be like, oh, we're just going to stay around for 5 days. We love you so much. Okay, it's going to be real, neat in 5 days. And then when I got 40, they were like, you're 40. We're going to now go from light to we're going to go to normal. So other people's normal is what I consider like, oh, so heavy. And my doctor was like, girl, this is normal. And then they were like, and we're going to be here for 7 days. We about to post up. We packed a bag. So that started to increase. Now, I was told that because I was older, that is normal, that your flow increases when you get older. So still just running along with my life. Happy as a clam, okay? Happy to have my fibroids act up twice a year. That's fine. Not considering anything. Nothing's wrong. And then I got over 45. And so my husband and I are at my annual appointment one day. And my GYN was very direct, okay? Very direct. Was like, so what you going to do with all that stuff in there? And I was like, say what now? You know, it's just junk. And she was like, you're not trying to have a baby. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. It's just junk in there. You don't need all that stuff. And I was like, no, like I'm okay. And she was like, you're also not anywhere near menopause. You're not on birth control. And she was like, you guys could have a oops. Ha 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 ha. We were stone-faced. We looked at each other and like silently we were like, that's not funny. Like we were ready to go. I was like getting off the gown, put my clothes on. She got jokes and this is not funny. You know, she was like, y'all can have a oops. All you heard was her laughing. We were dead silent. We were like, she is tripping. So moving along with my life, everything's fine. So then I was like, well, let me think about it. And so I started getting the testing. When the test came back, the tests were like, oh, congratulations, you are perimenopausal. So then I was like, oh, well, this is nice. I don't have to worry about getting a hysterectomy. I'm just going to peacefully slide into menopause with grace and green juice and workouts. I'm just going to slide into menopause. So I thought. So I didn't do anything that year, didn't seek to have a hysterectomy or anything. 2 years later, I am in yoga class. And we go to lay on our belly for Cobra. And I was like, oh, I think it's like a pebble under this mat. What's wrong? Is my shirt rolled up? What's going on? It was so much discomfort to lay on my belly. And I was like, I know this is my good mat. I know this mat does not, is there a ripple in this mat? Why? And I could not lay comfortably on my belly. That had never happened my whole life. I was like, what is going on? So then I was like, maybe it's just like it was a fluke, something under that floor. So then I come home and I'm going to do yoga. So much discomfort trying to lay on my belly. And so I called my doctor and I was like, look, I was in yoga. This is what happened. And I have so much discomfort trying to lay on my belly suddenly. And so she's like, maybe your fibroids are growing, let's take a look. Not only were they growing, okay, but the ones that I had already had who had been with me for 20 years had invited friends. They got married, they'd had kids, and they'd all moved in there together, okay? And so by the time I went to get the imaging, now this is my version, and you guys may have a different thought. Unless your technician, your radiology tech is new, they know what's what. Mm-hmm. And so I'm laying there, and they're clicking, counting, clicking, count. I thought that clicking was never going to stop. Click, 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 click. And I was like, how many are there? Because every time they click, they're counting, and that's one. And so by the time I got up, she was like, baby, you got a belly full of fibroids. And I was like, oh, I swear I couldn't lay on my stomach for yoga. Like, I was just like, so I was like, oh my gosh. Like, there's some level of like, I knew that, but to hear it, she was like, child, to hear it, I was like, oh, shoot. So I went back and, talked to my doctor, who is very direct. And she was like, I told you to do this 2 years ago. I was like, I was not ready. I had to be ready. And now that I can't lay on my stomach
comfortably,
I feel ready. So it was not, trickling. There was nothing wrong with my bladder. I didn't want it to get to those places. Number one, my fibroids never bled. So there was that. It was the combination of I cannot comfortably lay on my belly. I got a belly full of fibroids. It was understanding that I was not close enough to menopause for my cycle to stop feeding them, because the one thing, clockwork, honey. My cycle every month has a 48-hour window, and she was in it. She was like, president accounted for. Like, she was not going to be late. She was not missed. She was bam. I'm here. And so understanding that, I'm a little far from menopause, that cycle is going to keep showing up. Those fibroids are going to, I'm so glad you're still, bleeding. This is so great for us. And keep feeding them. I was like, yeah, I need to probably think about this, Unlike the two of you, like I was very nervous. You all know this, to the point where you were like, don't talk to people, don't listen to people. And you were like, get out of that Facebook group. So it was some Facebook
I'm like, who
group.
knew they had a group for this?
They got a group for anything you can think of.
I'm not joining.
So I just wanted to like read, like, what are people saying? How are they feeling? What's going on? It was a hot mess of anxiety for me. And Joy was like, girl, get out of that group. You don't need that group.
And probably misinformation for you, because everybody's story is different.
Everybody's story is so different. Everybody's, I'll say, guidance and suggestions from their physician is so different. We talked about this. I won't go there yet, but I'll talk about how long was your recovery? Like, when did you feel like, okay, I can do everything that I used to do? And
I think my assigned.
Yeah, there's the assigned time, and
right.
There's, yeah.
I think mine was it 7 weeks?
I feel like it was 6.
It was 6, and I took 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like it was 6.
I took 7. Yes, it was 6 weeks. Now, she did let me know, on the front end that it could vary just depending on my healing.
Yeah.
But ideally, was 6 for my particular type of hysterectomy. And I guess if you had like everything out, that radical one you said, it could be like 11 or something like that. It can go longer. So it kind of depends on your particular procedure and your healing. So mine was 6. I guess because my job allows me the flexibility to work remotely, I didn't really feel too much angst about returning. But I also felt another week won't hurt. So I took 7.
Well, you also had a little, I don't want to say a fall and like alarm people, but you did have a little like trip up the stairs.
Oh, yes.
During your recovery, when you should have been sitting down, just saying.
Yes, up the stairs is always worse than down. Yes, up the stairs. This is true. But I lived in that recliner.
Yeah.
You can't sleep on your back for like the first couple nights. Miserable. But it was pretty, 7 weeks I was okay. I wasn't trying to do anything, too far, left field. But my stitches still hadn't even healed. Yet.
Oh, in 7 weeks?
No. Yeah, I think I went back because they said sometimes, because they were like the dissolvable ones, and sometimes they don't dissolve all the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I remember going back for that because I was like, why do I feel this hard thing right there? You can feel it. inside,
okay.
and it's a little uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I was good. It was 7 weeks. I don't think I needed anything else, unless I just didn't want to go to work. That's a whole nother story.
Right. How was your recovery?
I think everything kind of went smoothly. I kind of pushed it a little bit. She warned me though. She was like, "Listen, you're gonna be exhausted. You're gonna be." I was like, "Me? Yeah, no. I've been working forever. I should be okay." She was right. I was exhausted, but I still pushed myself when I was awake.
What were you doing exactly?
Laundry.
Why were you doing that?
Because it needed to be.
You
done.
were doing it during the 6-week period?
Yes. Yeah. How else was we gonna get it?
I don't know. They have services.
Yeah, no.
Call a phone a friend.
Yeah, no. This was like
And
week
here's the
3.
thing. Why are you
like
doing
week
laundry?
3.
You're not even going anywhere. Where are you going?
It was just
You don't need to be dressed.
It was a ritual. I was getting dressed every day.
In what?
In my outfits.
Really? Let me be clear. I was not doing that. Any of that.
Where were you going?
To the living room. I don't know.
Girl,
Wherever.
bye. Now,
If I had an appointment, I was getting dressed for that.
you didn't have an appointment in 3 weeks.
I did have an appointment in 3 weeks. I went to
you
the
had
doctor
2
like
weeks.
7 days later, and I went to the
Yeah, you
doctor.
did.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
appointments. Yeah, I know. No, I had appointments. So I was getting dressed, and when I had an appointment, I had lunch. I was going to lunch. Okay. I'm getting a ride. We're going to lunch.
You were pushing it way too hard.
I did.
Girl,
I
bye.
did.
You were out in the streets for real.
Well, no, not immediate. I'm talking about when I went for my appointments, not just every day. Just when I had appointments.
When you went for your 2-week appointment, you had lunch after that?
Out in the streets.
Girl, I came back home and put on loungewear. They were lucky I didn't wear my loungewear to that appointment.
I was out at M Italian, honey. I was having lunch.
No. I pushed it one day during my recovery on the phone with Joy.
I remember. I was like, sit your butt down.
And, I was supposed to do the 10 minutes of walking a day. And I was feeling so good this day. I was like, I'm going to do some Pilates.
No, wait a minute.
I'm gonna.
Too far.
She was doing meat lifts.
I was.
That's too far.
It was because I developed such pressure in my lower abdomen. And when I went back for my next checkup and I told her I've been doing that, she was like, I'm going to tell you something right now. You can recover in 6 to 8 weeks or you can recover in a year. That's your choice. And I was like, oh, a year, and she was like, sit down. Sit down. So I was very obedient after that. And I sat all the way down, period. I don't know anything about laundry. I don't know anything about anything.
I mean, if I had to do over again, I would not have done
right.
it. But, hindsight being 2020, I did it. It didn't work out well, and I was like, never again. But I noticed my energy level, it was months before my energy level got back up. But that's because of the loss of the red blood cells. And
yes.
So, you kind of partially anemic. So I didn't believe that would happen either. I was like, I'm sitting at my desk, and I can't keep my eyes open. What is going on here? Like, this is not me. But I was like, she warned me that this was going to happen. So, it was into August. It was probably January, February before I felt like my energy level had come all the way back around. But other than that, I think I was okay,
Yeah. When I told Joy that, I think I told you too, you're so like good at like telling people to be obedient to medical stuff. You were like, that's what you got to do. Then Joy was like, that's some bull. When I told her that the doctor told me like nothing could go inside for, did she say 8, 12? What? No, she said 12 weeks.
12 weeks.
It was
right.
12.
And
That's
I
why
was sitting,
like,
I was like, like I burst out laughing as we were in the actual office. And she was like, no, I'm serious. And I was like, and she was like, no, Nicole, I'm serious. And I was like, you mean like in there? 12 weeks? I was like, you sound foolish. I'm married very happily. This is not going to work out. And she was like, no, but you had stitches in there. I was like, yes, but you told me that they were going to fall out when I pee. So I think we'll be good. And she was like, no, I'm serious because you can introduce bacteria. I was like, you should have heard me like fussing going to the car. I was like, she is insane. I don't know who she thinks is going to do that. My husband was like, we're going to do that. And I was like, that's what you think. We're not doing that. Because you were like, she's crazy. And I was like, I know, right?
Yeah,
And you were like, that's what you got to do.
You have to do it.
You know, she told me 12 weeks.
It was 8 for me. How long for you?
I wasn't active. I didn't even ask that question.
I
had been in so
these
much
are not
pain,
questions I
care.
cared about.
Just let me know when I'm going to be me again. That's all I care about.
That's
I
right.
didn't ask about any of that. And I wish somebody would have warned me. I don't know if this happened to you ladies, the hormone surges after.
Yeah.
You did tell me that.
What is this? Oh my God. Yeah. But that was the only thing that I wish.
You did tell me.
Somebody
now,
would
let's
have
be
warned
clear.
me
She's
about.
talking about sexual hormone surges.
Just saying,
okay.
So now I warn everybody. Listen here, it's gonna be rough, and you can't do anything, so it's gonna be real rough.
Well, I'm gonna split the difference. What does can't do anything really mean? Like, you know, when I went back for my second post-op, I was like, so more about what's going on down here. I know she was so sick of me, and I was like, so. What about the outside? What about this? What about that? My poor GYN. But you have to ask these questions. Look, right. You got to hold the reins of your own health care. If you don't ask, you won't know the answers. Right. So, you know, there's not like nothing. Mm-hmm. There's something.
You was pushing that envelope.
Yeah, you pushed the envelope.
She was pushing that envelope.
Because my thing is, what's the point of something if I can't have everything? I'm not a some or none kind of, no.
No. I'm not greedy. That's like saying, what's the point of giving me a new car if it's not a Rolls Royce? You can give me a new something else. You can give me a new, maybe you giving me a new Bentley. Maybe you not. Maybe you giving me a new Lexus. I'm okay that it's not a Rolls Royce. Maybe you're like, I'm going to give you the car, but I'm not going to pay for the insurance. I'll pay for the insurance.
We talking about cars here. Cars and intimacy are two different things. Two different things.
One thing like no ma'am.
I accept this.
Like no ma'am.
I accept this.
I didn't have those. I didn't have the hormones.
You didn't?
You didn't have no.
I did.
When you said that, I thought you were referring to like hot flashes. I'm like, God, yes.
Oh no, zero, not a single one to this day. No.
You don't have hot flashes?
No. I told you this months ago. You thought they would catch up with me. No.
I'm about to reach for my
I've been
fan
having
right
hot
now.
flashes since I was 25. So
really?
You used to it. Do you carry little fans?
Do you carry little fans?
I drink a lot of water, as you saw.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, my hormones probably have been off since I was like 19. I had my first ultrasound when I was 19. I had cysts on my ovaries, so my hormones have been all over the place. So I've been dealing with a lot of hormonal stuff for years.
Okay. Yeah. So what would you tell anybody watching this, anybody listening? And one thing I want to be clear about is my doctor never told me to get a hysterectomy. And I almost feel like it's something they can't do or they're not supposed to do. They're like, you have options.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
These are the options.
Right.
These are the probabilities of success with your various options. Like they should not and cannot tell you, you should get a hysterectomy. Like they can't do that. And she never did that. I want to be clear. What would you say to people, like even people like me who are like, I'm scared, or even people who aren't scared, but, you know, there are some myths that they're holding on to about they're going to be unhappy or they're going to be, you know, so depressed. And I think there are lots of other factors that could lead to that. But, you know, people who think that it's this, you know, dark, horrible situation, what would you share with them?
I typically say, you know, like you said, the provider's job is to inform you, not persuade you into doing something. Mm-hmm. I just need to give you the facts. It's up to you what you do with the facts. I've had friends who had hysterectomies at a younger age, and it really affected them. So for me, I try to give people the information, tell them to do their own research. Mm-hmm. If you don't trust your doctor, get a new one.
Absolutely. 100%.
Get a new one. You know, the other perk is if, you know, can you live like this? Can you live with the heavy cycle, the pain, you know, being out in public and, you know, bleeding through your clothes? If you can live with it, then go ahead. But I couldn't live with those things. Mm-hmm. And then, You know, if after all of those things you still have questions, then wait, because you need to make sure you're sure that it's what you really want to do. Don't let anybody, you know, make you feel one way or another. I have friends who were concerned that they wouldn't be able to have children. You know, I said there's other options for that, but that's up to you. You know, whatever it is you want to do. If you want to try to go through having fibroids removed and IVF and IVU and things of that nature, that's fine if that's what you want to do. But just make sure you're making an informed, educated decision. And I tell them the big perk is you can wear all white all year round now. You don't have to. For most of my friends, I mailed them cards like, welcome to the all white club.
Right.
Like as a joke or whatever. But, you know. I mean, I just want everybody to at least be informed. Don't go into it because somebody says, oh, you better get this or you better get that.
Yeah.
You know, because you do have friends and family who will tell you don't get it, and you should just sit up here and suffer. A woman should never get her uterus removed. A woman should never do this. Listen here. Like your doctor said, I'm not using it. It's causing me more, you know, hurt than good. It's probably time to really consider letting go.
I like that. And I'll speak on that a little bit. And I'm not speaking for anybody, but I am speaking to whoever this speaks to. As a woman sitting here without children, for me, that was not a consideration because I wasn't in my 20s or 30s. I was well into my 40s. And I think for me, the blessing was I've never been that person that felt like children would complete my life. And it's not that I don't love children. I do. It's not that I hadn't in my younger days thought about having children. It wasn't a completion thing for me. So I wasn't incomplete. And I know that there are people who think and baby makes three, right? And that completes them. And I think if that's what they believe about their life and if that's what they believe makes them complete, then that's their situation. That was not my situation. My life was and is already so like fulfilled and wonderful and rich that I didn't feel incomplete not having kids. And so it wasn't a, what does this mean for my mothering? What does this mean for my womanhood? Because those are places where I'm already complete. So, and I know that it's different for everybody, right?
Different for everybody, right? And some people that is like a ruminating thought. Like, oh, I can't give my parents grandchildren. I can't this, I can't that. Because, I mean, I've met people who are at risk for like cervical cancer. Like they've had it in their 20s and now you're in your 30s, 40s, and, the doctor is saying, we should really go ahead and do this because you're at risk. Or women who are still holding out hope at 45, 50 that they're going to have a baby. I'm thinking, you want to chase a toddler around at 45 or 50?
Well, I don't know how they're going to have them.
I don't know. But some people still have full cycles and they still don't have issues at that age. I mean, to each his own.
Let me tell y'all this one fact before we wrap up. So I called Tiffany. I'm sorry. You know what? I apologize. Look at how I skipped her because she already has a kid. I apologize. Tell us why you were unconcerned. Other than you already got a grown kid. But I'm sorry. Tell us.
No, I was just going to say the common theme that both of you touched on was that you have options.
Yeah.
That you are different. Everyone is different. Everyone's circumstance is different. So all things considered, do your research. Ask the questions because people will be in your ear. Ask the questions. I literally had a notepad with me.
I'm sure. There was like a 3-hour appointment with me.
Yes, ma'am. I had a notepad with me. She was so excited. She was like, I'm just so tickled. She's like, I'm so happy you have questions. Yes, I have questions. So, get clarity and get just fulfillment from you doing your due diligence as opposed to just, all the noise. Whether or not you have a child or not, I don't know. You could be younger in your 20s, and, me, I was late 40s when I had mine. So, different ages come with different things. So good points made all around. But yes, definitely options.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had to jump in there.
I'm so sorry. But I forgot to tell y'all about, well, you all know now, about the stuff that afterwards you think about, like, what's in there? So I don't have the uterus. I don't have this, but I have that. Like, is there space?
I did that.
Yeah, right.
And Google, and you looking? I'm looking at illustrations.
That's right.
I'm like, oh, it moves down.
Yeah, that your small intestines, things come together because they want to be together. But then also, remember, I think I called you, Tiffany, and then I was talking to you, and I was like, so I still have these ovaries. They're still producing eggs. Where are these eggs going? Let me tell you what I learned, okay, honoring the Armor friends and family. My body just absorbs the eggs. They just dissipate. So everything is kind of like business as usual because, again, I'm still producing eggs, and so they're still dropping. There's just nowhere for them to, like, implant. So they're absorbed by my body. Wow. The more you know, right? Fascinating. So
make sure you do your floor exercises so you don't have a prolapse.
Why would I have a prolapse?
That's real.
What kind of exercises?
Like Kegels and Kegels, strengthening.
You don't need to be on the floor to do that. I'm doing them right now while we're sitting here.
That too. No, I said floor exercise like your pelvic floor.
Oh, yeah.
I read about that as I was online. Google was my friend.
Weren't you doing them already?
Huh?
You weren't already doing pelvic floor exercises?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sitting, stopping stuff,
okay.
midstream, yes.
And I just like to say, I think that if you are a male and your partner, your wife, any female in your life who may be struggling with these issues, just try to inform yourself as well and become more understanding.
That's a good point.
Because I will say that I've heard more than one woman say that it crossed her mind, what if I meet a man after this and he doesn't want me because I cannot have children?
That's not the man for you.
Well, that's how I think and you think, but if she wants that man, she wants him to
Why
understand and want her.
Why would you want somebody who's not the man for you? Listen
here, I don't know.
Listen,
I just want everybody to be informed. Now, we're talking, the conversation is typically for women, but I think men need to be informed as well so they can know how to interact with us, to understand, to know what's going on, whether it's medical, even from menopause to everything. I think it's important for us to understand each other's reproductive issues. But I think, we as women tend to get the information, but sometimes men don't always get the information.
I agree.
But for us, too, from the perspective, if you're married or in relation, they're more than likely going to be your caregiver while you're out for those 6 to 8 weeks.
100%.
So my husband went with me to all my appointments, and you hear that?
Right. But I mean, we've also seen situations where the husband is not the caregiver.
Now, I don't know those people.
I do, but okay.
My husband goes with me to all my appointments
anyway. Right.
But to the point where he walks in and they say hi to him. So after that, if people don't have good relationships, I'm sorry for them because whoever your caregiver is has to shower you. Okay. For the first couple showers. You have got to have such trust, respect, such compassion and humility. Because there cannot be a wall. There can't be anything that you thought you were too good for or whatever when somebody has to shower you. I know we got to wrap up, but I'm going to tell y'all something, okay? And I'm not talking for everybody, but it's somebody I'm talking to. Don't ever want somebody who don't want you. Because what that says is that you want somebody who's not willing to build with you and grow with you. And building and growing looks different at different stages of life. Now, I'm not saying that it's okay to not be goal-driven and broke and then say, well, I can't believe they won't build with me. No, I'm not talking about non-goal-driven and broke. What I'm talking about is life comes for all of us, and sometimes it comes in our health circumstances in ways that we don't expect. And if somebody looks at you and says, well, I love everything about you, and you would be such a good mate for me, but I only want to have kids naturally, they're not willing to build and grow with you. And many people, unfortunately, have gotten into situations and relationships and marriages where they thought they were going to have kids, and it turns out that one of them, and it's not always the woman, can't have kids. If that breaks up the marriage, that's a really hard lesson, but it's a lesson. Okay, it is a lesson.
Right. And also, marry somebody who is going to be good for your 50, 60, 70-year-old self.
That's right.
I don't care if you get married at 20. Make sure you choose a partner who you know is going to take care of you, and you're going to take care of them, because it goes both ways. Some people don't want to be caregivers, and they will leave at the first sign of having to care for you. Make sure you marry somebody who is caring and kind and compassionate. Make sure that's on the list too.
That's right. I thank you all so much for sharing your journeys and your stories. And thank you for supporting me through my journey. When I would call with these crazy questions, like, where do my eggs go?
And she had many of them.
I really did. I had a couple questions like every week. Like, so what about this? What's going to happen with that? So, but that's what y'all here for.
Absolutely.
That's it. We all have to support each other.
That's right.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Honoring the Armor friends and family, I hope you have been ministered to. I hope you have been informed. I hope you have been edutained for Women's Health Month. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.
Thank you for watching Honoring the Armor podcast. We're releasing new episodes every other week. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Like and subscribe so you don't miss out.